Welcome into the REVO Church podcast. I'm Jamie, and it has been a minute since we've been here. We took all of October off just to take a deep breath to get realigned. And man, I'm so glad that you clicked on the video, because here's the deal. We are starting something new. If you've ever been to REVO, you know we have some core values at REVO. Well, one of our core values talks about how we are called to live bold. Living bold means that you go and you share Jesus, that you talk to people wherever you live, work, eat, play, study, and shop, that you should be going and studying. And so in this episode, we're going to talk all about how you can live bold. And I'm actually joined, it's not just me, I'm joined by John here. John,
hello.
You've seen him. This isn't the first time he's been on the podcast. He's a fan favorite. Everyone in the comments, every time we do an episode, no matter who my guest is, there's at least one comment that's like, bring back John. We want John. And everyone's just chanting, we want. In the crowd, there's people celebrating. We're in a studio, but there's a crowd somewhere that's like, yes, John is on the podcast.
Lord.
I'm joined by John Wood. John, how's it feel to be on the podcast again?
Man, it feels great. I love to be back, man. It's always fun to do these. And for that crowd, dude, I feel bad for them if they're cheering my name.
They're cheering the wrong name. Man,
name.
it's so good.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. So, John, just to kick us off here, tell us a little bit about, what you do, like what work do you do, what caused you to get into it? Like, take us a little bit on your journey of not personal life.
Yeah, absolutely. So my whole work career basically can be summed up with basically I started out in customer service. I worked at Sam's Club, and I had a previous job before that at a trampoline park. And basically it was just all about just talking to customers and everything. And that was pretty much my teens. And then as I got closer to being 20, 21, somewhere around there, I was like, man, like I kind of want to do something. I want to work with my hands, just because I grew up on a farm kind of with my grandpa. Yeah. And there was just a lot of early mornings and a lot of work on his garden and just the yard and stuff. So like I always appreciated that, because he would always relate it back to like, life lessons and biblical lessons. And it was just something that like was instilled at me at a very early age. So I pretty much got into heating and air. That's what I do now currently. Nice. And I got into that through my lovely wife, Abby, as we all love.
Hey, shout out Abby.
Shout out Abby. And her mom actually worked at a heating and air company, and I was able to get my foot in the door and work my way up, learn the trade.
Nice.
And and I might put a pin in that and come back to that experience. But now I work currently at Wake Forest University, working on heating and air equipment and trying to grow there. So, yeah.
That's very cool. Do you feel like, how does it feel to know, like, anytime, like, anybody's air conditioning messes up at REVO, that they call John Wood? And they're like, John, like, it's hot in my house and it's supposed to be cold.
Man, it's tiring. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I love you guys. Pay me.
I guess it's a little bit of a shameless plug, just being like, I do heating and air.
Yeah, I do heating and air. That's
336. No, I'm kidding.
Call them. So here's a question for you in your work, because here's what I don't have. For a little bit of my life, I've worked in different public jobs. Mainly, I did 3 different stints at Lowe's Foods.
Okay.
I always, it was like a joke of like, you could never quit Lowe's. You could only take breaks, because everyone that I knew, they worked at Lowe's, but then they immediately come back. Like, you couldn't quit. You're just taking I'm on an extended break from Lowe's Foods right now.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know when it's going to end, but it's extended. But for most of my life, I've worked ministry jobs. I've been around mostly Christians. And so the general perception of working a Christian church ministry job is that Christianity is pro. That's usually the response. So, one of my questions that I wanted to talk about was, man, at your current work, what does religion look like? The people that you're working with, like, what are their thoughts on just religion, not just Christianity, but just religion as a whole? Is that something you feel like they're taking seriously, or is that something they're not too like keen on? Like, what's the vibe?
Yeah. I would say, surprisingly, and I'll say this, I didn't expect as many people to be pro, I guess, if you would like to put it that way, pro Christianity. Yeah. With the group of guys that I work with, it's mostly Christianity, but I think to make a distinct difference though to what we're talking about, it's that Christianity that you inherited from your family.
Got you.
You know,
Got
like,
you.
yeah, my dad was a pastor, so I'm a Christian. Or like, yeah, my grandpa, you know, or my grandma sang in the choir, so I'm a Christian. And
I went
it's
to
like,
VBS when I was 12.
yeah, I went to a trunk or treat once, and
Amen.
I'm a Christian. But it's more so cultural Christianity than it is like true Christianity. And from my experience and from what I see, and then outside of the group of guys that I'm with, as you expand more into like, you know, office jobs or just different jobs that are on campus, and you have to interact with people who have a totally different life experience and who may not share the same, you know, Christian values that you have. So I've experienced a little bit of both, but you know, in that setting though, it's just so fun to just be able to, one, like share the gospel with somebody, like in the office space. If I get a chance where somebody's going through a hard time or whatever, like I can still be like, hey, how can I pray for you?
Yeah.
And like, you know, they're not going to be like, well, how dare you pray for me? You know, most of the time they're just like, yeah, you know, you can just pray for whatever. You can pray for my mom, whatever it is. And then at the same time, with the group of guys that, you know, say that they're Christian, I can also help them figure out what is actually biblical and what is something that they just heard growing up and they thought it was biblical and it's really not. And so like clarifying what the gospel message is and clarifying like, you know, questions that they may have about the Bible.
Yeah,
So,
I think you said something really interesting that I would love to spend a little bit of time on. You talked about like the idea of the cultural Christian. That a lot of the people that you're working with is like, yeah, I'm a Christian. Like I grew up in church, or, you know, my family went to church. How do you feel like that plays in? Like, cause you are a little bit more than a cultural Christian. You,
I would hope so.
you would hope so. You serve at some capacities. You're following Jesus. You're doing all these different things. So how does that, when you're talking about living bold, what does that look like for you when you're talking to them about church and Jesus, compared to, say, like, you know, someone who doesn't know God, like we're telling them about God. But for them, like, they grew up in the South, their families went to church. So what does that conversation look like?
Honestly, like those conversations are, let me put it this way. I'd rather have a conversation with a non-believer than somebody who says they're Christian and may not be, you know, I don't know. But just their biblical worldview is totally out of whack just by what they've told. So that's a difficult conversation. But most of the time, like, I feel like it's tense, but they listen. They do listen. And I think it's more so because I'm not in their face saying, "Oh no, you're wrong. Let me tell you about, like, you know, dude, like, you're stupid. Like, you're wrong." No, it's not like that. It's just a genuine conversation of like, "Oh, like, where's that in the Bible? Like, can you tell me where that's at? Like, you're supposed to dress your best. Okay, like, where's that at? Like,
show me.
Can you show me, like, in
Sunday clothes? Where is that?
yeah, like 3-piece suit. Like, is that what you're talking about? And so being able to like clarify what they're saying, because I think too, with the cultural Christians, they know all the Bible terms from their own perception, and so when we use it, they're thinking of their context, not a biblical context. So it's just clarifying things and being like, you may be a little wrong there, buddy, but like, let's figure it out together.
Like, let's get there. Let's round it. One thing, I've been reading a book. I think this book kind of ties into what you're saying with people like that. The general premise of the book, it's a evangelism book, or a defending the faith apologetics book. It's kind of a little bit of both, but in it, he's talking about how we are called as Christians to win hearts, not win arguments. And I think, like, especially for people that are like, you know, the people I interact with, some of them are very just like cultural Christians. Like, I've interacted with that all throughout my life too. I think what I've learned is people just want to be heard, and they want to hear, and they want to know that you're willing to listen, and then you can start to share. I think sometimes we try to win the argument without winning the heart first. And, and I think that's good. That just kind of knocks that all out of whack. But so you're pretty heavy Christian. You walk in there and they're more culturally Christian. So how did they, like, initially when they found out you were a Christian, they found out you followed Jesus, that you were going to church every Sunday, not just like, Christmas and Easter. You were not just going to church on Sunday, but man, you're getting there at 6 a.m. because you're serving with the production team, and they're finding out you're serving on student ministry. So there's another night of the week, and you've hosted different Bible studies, and you've done all these things. So what is their takeaway when they hear that you're doing more than that? Is there questions like, why are you doing that? Or are they more like accepting, or are they looking at you like you're the weird kid, the one with, like what's their general thoughts when they start to find out, oh, he's a Christian, not just like, he's been to church.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say for the most part, I work with like a group of about 12 or 14 guys. And so I don't get to interact with all of them all the time, but the ones that I do, like, they have questions, especially the ones. So let me put it this way. I got 2 guys that I really work with every day. Yeah. And one of them comes from a background of Christianity, and like his whole family's been in church, and, it's like, my mom's mom and my mom's mom's mom. And, like that's his church, and it's very cool. And then the other side is he's an atheist, doesn't believe in God. So it's cool to just be able to let the actions do the talking, instead of like you said, like be like, no, you're wrong, listen to me, and just hear them out. And so I guess my interactions with them they don't like push me away or anything. If anything, they ask questions. Okay. Like they're actually like wanting to know more. Yeah. And I really genuinely believe it is because you start that relationship. What you were saying, listen to them.
You build a relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I think it's more standoffish when you say, I'm a Christian, and you never talk about it again. They kind of push you away. Like, okay, there's another guy who's saying he's a Christian. But I think they start to gravitate towards you when you actually live out the principles of the Bible, of what Jesus talks about loving people. Because the way that my friend who doesn't believe in God, the way he puts it is, positive vibes. I'm always putting out positive vibes. You're
just the vibe guy.
Yeah. So he puts it that way.
You have, as the Gen Zers are calling it, just that aura.
Yeah, the aura. I got that riz, as the kids would say. But yeah, so I genuinely believe that. I'm not all into the whole positive vibe thing, but you do present a positive spirit whenever you walk out those principles, praying, reading your Bible, things like that.
I think it's the whole fruit of the Spirit, right? We did a sermon series a little while on that. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, self-control. Yeah. I think are all the fruits of the Spirit. If I'm wrong,
way to go.
You can fact check me.
Yeah, fact check me, because I can't.
Check me. But I think when we're living out those fruits of the Spirit, people start to see it. It's kind of like Matthew talks about the idea that we are called to be salt and light. Yeah. If you've ever ate a pretzel, that thing's salty. It's good, but it just leaves you just like needing more. And it's kind of the same idea of what Jesus was getting at, is we are called to be needing more. People should look at our life and be like, why is it so different? Right. People should look and say, wow, like John's going through the same thing that I'm going through. The boss is being mean to me and he's being mean to John. Why is John so upbeat and I'm not? Like, what's that difference? And it's, you're throwing out the vibes and they start to see that. So tell me about that a little bit. How do you transition the conversation, or how do you bring it from like, man, he's just a positive vibe guy to, oh, he's the Christian, here's Jesus. Like, how do you bridge that gap? Yeah. Yeah. Well, I will say I've had more deep conversations with my friend who doesn't believe in God. And I don't want to say funny, but what's crazy is like, he's the one who always he'll come up to me and be like, hey, I got this and this going on in my life. I just, I don't know how it's going to work out. And he's anxious, paranoid, and he lets those get to his thoughts. And like, for me, like, it's just, man, that's a softball, man. Like that's an easy answer, dude. He's like, lobbing it up for you. You gotta, smack that thing out of the park. Exactly. So like, he'll just talk to me about it, and I'm like, okay, like here's my opportunity. So I'll ask, like, I'm like, well, like, what are you doing to fix it? Like, what do you go to?
And he's like, well, man, ever since I stopped drinking, like it's been hard to fill that spot in my heart. And I still feel like I'm still causing problems and all that. And it's like, oh dude, you can't ask for a better opportunity than this. So like, I'll be like, man, like, for me and my experience of what I've gone through and been through, and I'll just start sharing my testimony, and then I'll just say, man, Jesus filled that spot in my heart, man. Like knowing that he rules over all and he controls everything, and he wants to be like, he literally wants to be my savior and forgive me from everything that I've done. Dude. Yeah. Like,
why wouldn't you?
Yeah. Of course I want Jesus to be in my life. And, I'll just share like how Jesus has impacted my life, and just getting connected with a group of Christians, getting connected to a church, and like seeing the support that comes from it. And I'll just talk about that. And then I'll ask him questions of like, do you have a group that you're a part of? And he's like, no, man. And then he'll just still be anxious and worried and all that. So, man, like it's honestly a walk in a park. Yeah, just saying like, you're a Christian.
Finding the softballs. And I think that's a lot of things. Sometimes we miss, we don't realize the fact of so many times when people are talking about their problems, because I've experienced this in just like random conversations with people on the street. I experienced this a whole lot when I was working at Lowe's Foods. Like people just, either they knew I was a Christian, or they just knew, like you were saying, we're living out, we're following Jesus, we're living it out. And so people are coming up and talking, and they're a lot more willing to share problems with us. Yeah. And what I had found with me was, when people are doing that, all they're doing is inviting you to tell them about Jesus, inviting you. And it's just kind of one of those, hit the softball. Yeah. Because I think a lot of times people think, oh, if I'm going to live bold, like I got to go up to that guy and tell him, you're in sin, you need Jesus. And we should call out sin. We should do all that. I'm not saying that's not it. We should. And that's a very good thing. And God bless the people that have the confidence to do that on a daily basis. Yeah. But also part of living out your faith and living bold is people are going to come up to you, and they're just going to bring a problem. And it's just us looking and saying, well, hey, let me help you with that problem. You're seeking an answer. I can give you an idea of a solution, but let me tell you what's really going to fix your problem. Yeah. Like you're having problems with your family. You can try doing these things, but I can tell you that until you find Jesus, until you go to him, it's not going to be. You're going to have these problems. You're still going to have these problems. You're going to. You might fix this, and here's this. Yeah. You might fix this because all you're doing is putting a Band-Aid in. And so I think just hitting those softballs out of the park, that's such a big thing. And
to add to that, like I think too is we've gotten, as Christians, like who work in a secular workspace, sometimes we forget that like we're Christians. like that's our identity.
Sometimes we think we're just workers.
Or just workers, and we just keep to ourselves, and we're supposed to keep it to us. But like, man, like God wants us to share the gospel with everybody, no matter what you do. Yeah. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I might have had a conversation with you before, but I've definitely, a pastor friend of mine who lives in Tennessee, like he's talked to me before, and he's been like, man, like I'm full-time ministry, but you get the opportunity to be in the world, like be able to share the gospel. He's like, man, like sometimes I'm a little jealous of that, sometimes. Like, and I think we've had that conversation, and it's like, man, like I'm right where a pastor would want to be. Like, why don't I take advantage of this? Like, it's way easier for me to share the gospel this way.
Yeah, that's why if you ever catch me out in public, or especially like catch me outside, if you ever catch me out in public, or like there's a couple coffee shops that I'll go to quite frequently, and you'll be like, why are you so like friendly with the workers? Because that's some of the only like non-Christians that I'm interacting with, and I'm really trying to like build those deep relationships, because I'm not just 40 hours a week with these people. Yeah. With these, that sounds with people that are not peasants. Believers. These terrible.
And to add to that, a mindset that helped me out was that I'm not an HVAC guy who is a Christian. I'm a Christian who does HVAC, who has these abilities.
It's putting those priorities.
Correct. Yeah. So
was that something that you were always like a thought process, or has that been like an experience, like you've started learning that?
That was definitely an experience, and that's something that at my last job I did not put first. And if you want, we can kind of go into that a little bit, just to kind of flesh it out. So the last job I was at, man, like I did the same thing. I was like, yeah, I'm a Christian. And as my coworkers started to get to know me, and as I started to blend into the blue collar culture, I started to talk like them, act like them, and everything. And it didn't really hit me until one of my coworkers, he's an older guy and he's from up north, so he just says whatever's on his mind. And he was like, he was like, dang. It's like, John, I thought you were a preacher's kid.
Wow.
And that just hit me hard, man. That hit me like just a brick wall. And at that point, I realized like what I've been doing. I've been putting my work ahead of being a Christ follower.
Yeah.
And so I dropped the ball at that job. So when I got this new job at Wake, what I did, and for any of you who are going into a new career or even at your job right now, like if you feel that way, just take a moment, pause right now and literally pray. Because that's what I did at Wake. Like, I got the job, and before my first day, I prayed to God, and I was like, man, like, God, use me in any way. This is a perfect opportunity. And I don't want to let you down again. And, so from that point on, like I can see how God's been working in my life at Wake.
Yeah, that's great.
So,
no, I like the idea of sitting and prioritizing and thinking through, man, I need to be a Christian before I'm, a worker, before I'm this. Just prioritizing that. We dropped a podcast a while back talking about in the No Easy Answers, talking about submitting to the government. If you haven't seen that one, hey, go watch that one.
Check it out.
But Pastor Nathan was on, and he was talking about how before we are American, we need to remember that we're a Christian.
Yeah.
Before we need to remember that we're this title or this title or this title, we need to remember, hey, I'm Christian first, and then I'm this, and then everything needs to filter through that lens. And so very similar to that. But as we're wrapping up here, I'd love to just ask the question, and you've kind of hit this a little bit, but let's say people are watching this that they work in similar. They work in a similar field as you. They have some similar, they're hearing some of the stories of like, yeah, I got a lot of cultural Christians at my work, or I got some people that are coming up and they're sharing problems, but I haven't been able to hit I haven't been able to swing and hit the softball or whatever the case may be. Like what's some advice or some things that you try to do that maybe they could either start implementing or just I tried this and it didn't work and I switched to this. Like, what's some advice you might give to somebody?
Yeah. I think for me, it's that you're not going to do it all on your own. The results belong to God. Yeah. So just be obedient to God, pray, read your Bible, just do the things you're supposed to do and share the gospel. To just kind of hit on that, instead of it coming from me, let me read some Bible verses.
There we go.
Colossians 3:23 through 24. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters. Yeah. Since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. It is the Lord Christ you are serving. Ephesians 6:7 says this: serve wholeheartedly as if you were serving the Lord, not people, because you know that the Lord will reward each one for whatever good they do, wherever they are slave or free. Wow. And I think too is, okay, John, like, okay, work hard, but why work hard? Why do that? Well, because of this, Matthew 28:17 through 20. And this is right after Jesus rose. Yeah. He says, when the disciples saw him, they worshiped him, but some doubted. Then Jesus came to them and said, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. So therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always to the very end of the age. So a good work ethic can be a witness to others. Yeah. Somebody, like you just said, like, why are you so positive? Why, the boss just yelled at us. Why are you still like good spirited? Yeah. Well, there's this dude named Jesus who, you know, at the end of the day, like he saved my soul.
He changed my life.
Like he changed my life. Like, and there's no need to be upset. So that's the thing is, man, like people are going to take notice of how we work in those workspaces, especially blue collar work. And, you know, when people see good work ethic, because laziness is a huge problem nowadays, I think.
All the time.
I think when they see a good work ethic and they see that you're positive and that you're going about it in a good spirit, it doesn't mean I don't mess up. It doesn't mean I'm not perfect. I have my days, unfortunately. But I think when you go about it in a good spirit, in a good way, and you do the things you're supposed to do, you ask for somebody's forgiveness when you've done something wrong. Yeah. That's been a huge part that I've done too. Like when I notice that I've said something to somebody that may not have been uplifting or mean or just trying to put him down, I go back and I'm just like, dude, I'm an idiot, man. Like, I'm sorry. Like, forgive me, man. Like, I don't mean that. Yeah. And own up. Just take accountability, own up. And
that might be absolutely life-changing, because I'd be willing to bet there's not many people that when they mess up, they come up to somebody and be like, man, I was wrong. Like, I tried, it didn't work. Like, I was supposed to get this done, I didn't get it done. Yeah. And I bet that's just such life-changing for somebody to hear that, you know, no one else is doing that. Yeah. So then again, it's back to that idea, that salt and light of like, wait a minute, there's something different here.
Yeah. I mean, we're called to be set apart, you know, be in the world, but be set apart, man.
Be set apart. I like that. So, well, man, I'm glad that you jumped on here. It's always a joy. Dude. Like I said, people in the comments are always like, "We want John Wood."
I don't believe it.
Oh man, it's there. I have to delete every one of those comments because I don't want the other people to feel bad. But man, this has been episode 1, talking about living bold, talking about sharing our faith. So we'll see you in the next episode. Peace.